exciting to have all of our partners here from NGOs, governments, private sector, civil society, youth groups as well, and to see all of you here for the first time on our new ship, the MV Pacific World. So I wanted to start with just a brief introduction, first of all, to this Blue Innovation Reception. Can you all hear me okay? Everybody sounds right. I don't feel like there's a little bit of sound back here for the guitar, I think, coming on. But I wanted to share that this is the Blue Innovation Reception because we are sailing on this ship, building capacity, raising awareness for the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And thanks to all of our partners here in Hawaii as well, we were able to sail on our first voyage just last month. We were arriving back to Hawaii. We came actually in July as well. We just finished our 40th anniversary of Peaceboat, sailing on the new ship for the first time. And so on this last voyage, we launched a new scholarship program, our Youth for the SDGs project, in particular for the Ocean Decade. And many of you know the United Nations launched the Ocean Decade from 2020 to 2030. And as we were sailing on board this new ship, we really wanted to dedicate this vessel itself, the MV Pacific World, as a flagship, not only for the SDGs, but also for the UN Ocean Decade. So here you'll see that, Peaceboat has been sailing for more than 40 years around the world. As I mentioned, I just came back from Japan where we celebrated our 40th anniversary. Peaceboat was started in Tokyo in 1983 by university students who were convinced that by meeting people from other cultures and traveling across borders, those friendships would help promote peace and sustainability around the world. And so we now carry with us also the Nobel Peace Prize on board since 2017 as part of the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. We've been carrying the Nobel Peace Prize with us, so we're very proud to be here with all of you today on our new ship. On each global voyage, we visit around 20 different countries. So many of you were asking during lunch a little bit about our global voyage schedules and how we decide where we go. We have about 100 colleagues working in our Tokyo office where we're able to coordinate with our division that runs all of the boat programming from Japan, where we have Yokohama, which is our home port. You can see the red line that goes all the way to the northern hemisphere up into the Arctic. And then we also have a quite central route, and then a southern route also, the green line, which goes down to South Africa, Namibia, Brazil, Argentina, and South America and Patagonia. Our headquarters in Japan is our main office, and we have our second headquarters in the United Nations Plaza in New York, which is where I'm based. And all of us have our pass to the UN as well, which we also provide for our partners and interns who work with us in the United Nations office. So I wanted to share with all of you that another great way we can collaborate is by inviting young people from your organizations to either volunteer with us virtually as we have a hybrid internship, or to join us actually in our office in New York City and to participate in events at the UN headquarters. Many of you have seen that our ship is sailing with the logo of the SDGs on board. This is why we are here today. Today is the Blue Innovation Reception and the Partnership Expo for the SDGs. So our goal is to really collaborate with each and every one of you to learn more about your work and to see how we can work together. I think that there's just so much collaboration that can take place when we're really up to date with what everybody's working on. So by sharing ideas and using the venue of our ship as a space to gather, we really hope that we can push forward the 2030 agenda together. As I mentioned, with the United Nations Ocean Decade of Science for Sustainable Development, we've taken on the initiative to bring young people on board and also experts in the field so that during each global voyage, we will have more young people learning specifically about ocean science and how that's being impacted by climate change, but also what are the solutions and the avenues that we can find to support the health of our ocean. So you'll see that we have these voyages listed here. 114th was our first voyage on this ship. We number our voyages by how many times we go around the world. So we are now on the 115th global voyage, so welcome on board. Hawaii is the first port of this global voyage. So the ship just came from Japan. to Hawaii. So yes, round of applause for everybody here in Hawaii. Thank you so much for welcoming us. Again, on the next voyage, the 116th voyage, the ship will be coming back to Hawaii in December, right around Christmas time. And then almost every voyage after that, we'll be back once a year, coming back around November each year, I believe. So we wanted to also encourage everyone here that we have this scholarship. It's called the Youth for SDGs Scholarship Program. It's really for young people around ages 18 to 30. Although we have two youth in the audience, maybe Isato and Emma, if you guys want to raise your hands. All right. These are two Hawaiian youth who joined us, 13 and 16 years old, who were on board our last voyage and got to participate in the program. We are coordinating this program together with our UN partners and NGOs to bring young people on board to study about the SDGs, to share best practices and solutions, and also challenges that each region faces that might be shared challenges. So we want to make sure young people have a place for dialogue and that they also can take action. So we do all kinds of activities in the ports. These are active programs where we are planting mangroves or doing restoration of coastlines or doing a beach cleanup like we did yesterday. So many activities that we're doing in different ports of call, and that's part of Peacebuild's work as well. So our last voyage that we had, we went to the Arctic and then we went to Latin America. This voyage as well, we'll be going to similar ports. So after Hawaii, the ship is traveling to Mexico. We'll be doing a program also for Blue Innovation in the port of Manzanillo. We'll be later then going to Guatemala, Costa Rica, Panama, Jamaica, and up to New York City. And whenever we work with our partners in Latin America, we also work at the high level with our United Nations regional offices. This one is located in Panama. We always host exchange programs as well with local partners and really believe in indigenous wisdom and traditions and looking at nature-based solutions. So we often do a homestay program or visit at least with our indigenous partners during Latin American sections. These are the mangroves as well. So we've been doing lots of reforestation of the mangroves and planting mangroves with our local partners and looking at the coastlines and how those really are connected to the ocean, the rivers, and of course the forests that we depend on so much. And while we're in Mexico, we'll be working with our partners at Restore Coral to participate in a coral reef restoration program. So not only is it the decade of ocean science, it's also the decade of ecosystem restoration at the United Nations. So we've been working very closely, especially for coral reefs, which are really suffering due to the increase in temperature and climate change. Which is why we believe it's time to act now. We want to take every moment that we can to use our ship as a flagship for the SDGs, but also as a venue for education and awareness raising. And so this ship, the Pacific World, can fit about 2,000 people in our capacity. And we've been building up capacity because Peacebuild believes in the future of our ship to be more sustainable, to be a vessel where we can really raise awareness for the SDGs and have solar and wind power be able to help us reduce our CO2 and to build a more sustainable future with all of you together. So I just want to say thank you very much for being on board. This Ecoship dream project of Peacebuild is going to be reality. We hope that we can bring this ship and dock it here in Hawaii, promoting a zero carbon emission ship of the future. And to do that, this Blue Innovation Reception is extremely important for us because we can't do a project like this alone. We are a nonprofit organization, 501c3 tax-exempt organization in New York. We do have participants that pay to come on board, and that funding is then recycled into the nonprofit activities. But still, we need everybody's contribution and support to have a dream project like this come to fruition. So this Blue Innovation Summit is just one step closer also to achieving our goal. But right now, also on board this ship, I kind of wanted to introduce our international director, because we have with us here today, not only myself as a director of the United Nations office in New York, but we also have with us Sumiko Hatakiyama. So I'd like to invite her up to the stage and just give a word of welcome. Sumiko has been working with Peacebuild for many years and is the international director on board. So Sumiko, thank you so much.
Welcome to Peacebuild. Expo and welcome to the Pacific World. It's been more than 2 years. We have not been able to sail and receive guests like this on the ship. And finally, we are here to receive all of you here in Honolulu. So it's such a pleasure for me to be here today. On this ship, we'll be in the upcoming segments. We'll be receiving a lot of young youth groups from different parts of the world. So we are ready to leverage this ship to talk about global issues, tackle global issues, think about the solutions all together. I myself have been working on nuclear disarmament issues for a long time, so I am also looking forward to using this ship to talk about nuclear disarmament, nuclear issues, visiting the United Nations in New York to talk about all these important issues. So really welcome and looking forward to what to come next with you all.
Yes, thank you, Sumiko. Thank you so much. It's a big job to be international director on the Peace Boat. We have so many international participants on board, volunteers, guest speakers coming and giving lectures between each of the ports of call. So Sumiko is really in charge of anything. If you have questions, feel free to ask her. Yes, thank you, Sumiko. Thank you so much. All right, and next I would like to invite up also my colleague Maria Perez. So I wanted to just really take this moment to say thank you, first of all. Yeah, big round of applause for Maria. She's been helping all of this coordination for our work here. And our work did not start here today on this ship. Since we came last time in July, we all know that Maui has been affected by the wildfires, and our hearts and our thoughts really go out to all those who've been affected by that as well, because we know that you have many family and friends there in that area. And so our Peace Boat disaster relief team has also been active in supporting. And today's event is a fundraiser, so thank you very much also to all of you for your contributions. The luncheon was donated by Peace Boat, and so all of the funds today are really going towards support local communities, and Maria is here to tell you about that. So a big round of applause for Maria and our team.
Aloha everyone. So as Melody said, my name is Maria. I'm super happy to be here and to see the incredible connections that we've done with Peaceboat. So I see some of my teachers. I'm also an alumni from Rotary. So Rotary is also here. I'm a Peace Fellow, and I'm also an alumni from the East West Center. So East West Center, raise your hands. We have students, we have guests, we have many people, also the Green Growth, who was also invited to teach to us. So I'm really interested in how to connect everything. This is my second year in Hawaii. I was here last year as a fellow studying, and I was this year as a TA also. So super happy to connect the dots and to see familiar faces, but also new faces here. So as Emily was saying, apart from this amazing job that Peaceboat does around the world, we also have an organization called PBB. It's Peaceboat Disaster Relief. So Peaceboat started in 2011, and it started because Japan has been also very exposed to different disasters. So it started as a center, as part of the Peaceboat NGO group, and so far we have mobilized more than 100,000 volunteers in different affected areas in Japan. I myself was a volunteer after the Fukushima as well. So we have worked in more than 70 different projects around the world in disaster. We have delivered more than 100 training programs until 2022. And we have, right now, the team is working in different projects in Turkey, Ukraine, Romania, Georgia, and Hawaii. So as Emily said, when Maui happened, when the fire happened, they delivered the dispatch to people from Japan. And because I was in Hawaii, I also joined the team. So we went to Hawaii, and thanks also to our local partners. Joshua is here. He's going to talk to you later. But also about this incredible network that Peaceboat and the different organizations brings together. So we went there, we visited the island, we partner with different organizations. So we deliver food, we work with the communities. And what was really interesting is that we went there to talk to people, to understand what the situation was. Because in the news in Japan, the information was different. So for us, it was we need to go to Maui. We need to talk to people. We really need to know what are the needs. So we volunteer, we cook food, we deliver food, we deliver around 500 different meals. We were there for 5 days. But then we kind of exchange different opinions. And we raise money in Japan. We raise money also on the ship. So people that are on the ship right now, there was a campaign going on. And as Emily said, this event is also. So far we have raised until now 26,000. So it's a really good number. And what we're wanting to do is, in the future, we're still structuring the project that we're going to be doing. So this is what we did in Maui. We partnered with World Central Kitchen, who's been a close partner to Peaceboat. So we deliver meals, we cook with them, we talk to people. It was really interesting. We also work with immersive chefs, and we also kind of like talk to people there. Japanese that were living in the island, friends of Peaceboat, local organizations, government, private sector. So right now we're kind of like, again, putting the dots, connecting the dots, and we're developing a project that we want to be working in the future. So it's like relief, but also like long-lasting projects. And as I say, what's interesting, what's also happening on board, so people really care. The connection between Japan and Asia and Maui or Hawaii has been very, very strong. So I personally feel very connected because I also have like the responsibility to give back to Hawaii. Peaceboat is really interested in doing this, so I think we're really happy to bring everyone together in a project. And as I said, so in the short term what we did, it was a donation. We did an initial donation to World Central Kitchen. And in the long term, this is what we want to do, is support a local organization. We're going to continue fundraising, and we're going to work with different organizations for building process and also the community and economic development. So this is part of what we're doing, but it's also our commitment with our relationship with Hawaii. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you to everybody who's been participating in, I know, the fundraising and, you know, sending so much support and relief efforts. This is a really important time for all of our community to come together, and I've seen like the really collaborative way that many of the communities in Hawaii have come together. I think it's a great example for the world. So thank you so much to everyone who supported and donated. And part of this program is exactly that, partnerships for the SDGs. So I'd like to invite up one of our main partners, Ms. Amanda Ellis, from Arizona State University in the Global Futures program. Amanda has been a beacon of light and inspiration in so many programs. Yes, working with us from the UN Climate Change Conference, Climate Week, Oceans Conferences, and so many others. So please give Amanda a big warm welcome. Thank you very much.
Aloha mai kako. Greetings, everybody. I would like to start with a formal greeting from Aotearoa, which is my birth island. E ngā mana, e ngā reo, e ngā rangatiratanga. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So this formal greeting recognizes you all as rangatira, as leaders. And why do we say thrice, 3 times at the end? 1 for those of us present, 1 for the ancestors, and 1 for tomorrow's future leaders. And I couldn't be more excited to be here. This program of Youth for the SDGs is really a beacon of hope. I was New Zealand's ambassador to the UN at the time when we were spending very long hours negotiating, as was Celeste in DC at the time. And to know that this is the first ever global development agenda. The Millennium Development Goals in 2000 were really for developing countries. These are global goals. So for the first time, 193 UN member countries have come together to create a development agenda through to 2030. So what do we do at the Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Lab? Well, we're very proud to be #1 for sustainability among US universities, according to Times Higher Ed, and in the top 10 globally. Sustainability is a core concept for Julie Wrigley, who is the benefactor for our Wrigley Global Futures Laboratory. And you can see here our mission statement. The whole idea is to help create just and regenerative global futures, both grounded in indigenous wisdoms, but also leveraging high tech. So 5 spaces for us. Traditionally, learning, what universities do, discovering, research, solutions. We have a Walton Solutions Center that does very practical action, including here with partners in Hawaii. Engagement, how do we ensure that we are bringing partners on board? And finally, what are the networks that can really help to create a multiplier impact in the way that Emily and the Peace Boat do such a brilliant job connecting networks from around the world? So, this is an example of a project that we run with UNESCO called Turn It Around for Climate. Designed for youth, but interestingly, the youngest person who entered the competition was 6 and the eldest was 86. This is about youth visions and voices for a sustainable future. And really, how do we come up with climate action solutions? And it's a shame Henk is not here, but I know Francois is. This was really spurred by the work that Blue Planet Foundation had done here in Hawaii to engage young people in an art competition as a precursor to getting the 100% renewable energy goal. So we want you to know, Blue Planet Foundation, this brilliant idea has gone global with UNESCO. And we just finished a project with 17,000 ASEAN universities and schools, and it will be at COP as well. And there are entrants from Hawaii. I wanted to show that, but I have a pack if anyone would like to see later on. So just an example. Why is it called Turn It Around? A very simple notion of taking flashcards, and it's turning it around because it's young people giving messages to policymakers. And it's literally turning around what could be a very negative future without youth action. Next one. Another example, SDG 4 on education. Solar Spell, Solar-Powered Educational Learning Library, global partnership with the Peace Corps, and in many Pacific Island countries, Fiji, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands. There are some 2 billion people who still have no access to the internet. This is an interim solution to create a solar hotspot. And this one, 179 members of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, which is the world's oldest multilateral body. And we are working with them on a global campaign called My Parliament, My Planet, Our Shared Global Future. Why parliaments? Well, they are the ones who turn what are called the nationally determined contributions. Those are the commitments that each country makes under the UNFCCC framework, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And some of you may have heard that word COP, Conference of the Parties, bandied about every year. All of the parties come together, which include the 193 UN member countries, plus the EU, plus the Vatican. And the idea is that each year there are supposed to be more ambitious commitments, but those commitments are really meaningless unless they are translated into national law. And as an outsider, I can say that we were very disappointed to see the US, for example, under the previous administration, withdraw from this treaty. The only country in the world to do so, now back in. But this is why parliamentarians are so important, because we need bipartisan support. We need everybody, all elected representatives on board. This one, SDG, my favorite SDG, SDG 5 on gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. This was launched in 2018 by the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and the then President of the World Bank. It's all about empowering solutions for positive change through women entrepreneurs. And here are a few interesting examples, but people have said, well, that seems really sexist, Amanda. Why just women? Can anyone guess how many countries have yet achieved gender equality in 2023? And there's a prize if you get this right. Anyone guess? Zero. Yes. Come see me afterwards. You get a prize. Can anyone guess? This is even worse. How many countries, just with all the commitments that have been made over the years since the Universal Declaration of Human Rights back in 1947, how many countries actually legislate for full gender equality? And, you know, it's less than 100, but it's more than zero. So, any guesses?
98.
98. I wish. Do we have another guess?
23.
43. Do we have another guess?
84.
84. No, we're going the wrong direction, unfortunately. 27. No, 13. Close. 14. So there are only 14 countries that provide gender equality under the law, which means it's so much harder for women to get access to finance, to have collateral, to own land, to be productive. But women are often incredibly innovative because of those obstacles. So this competition that we empower, and I'm seeing a number of partners in the audience, Women Entrepreneurs Empower United Nations Sustainable Development Goal Challenge. Last year, the winner for North America and Europe came from Hawaii, Danielle Harris with Elemental Accelerator. So very exciting to see Hawaii on the global stage. I'm probably going way over my time. So this year, the World Bank, for those of you who are interested in how to affect change through some of our big multilateral organizations, Women, Business and the Law is a database of all of the laws that impact women's ability to be economically active. And this is a huge partnership of some 70 partners around the world. You are able to go online, you can Google this right now, and you can look up any country. And we have a little map that our students have done at ASU, so you can click on the country and get a codified, quick snapshot on what laws still need to be changed. We also produced the Gender Equality and Governance Index, and I was thrilled to be in Iceland last year with the President, because Iceland was #1. So next one, we're going to come just to my second favorite SDG, which is SDG 13 on climate. This is a mechanical tree. Up on our campus, if anyone is coming through Phoenix, let me know and I will arrange for a tour for you. 20 years ago, Klaus Lochner, a physicist from Columbia, now at ASU, invented direct air capture, the ability to draw down CO2 out of the atmosphere. 2 years ago, he invented passive direct air capture. For those of you who have been to Iceland and seen Climeworks in action, you will see they're using geothermal energy to take CO2 out of the atmosphere and sequester it in the geological substrate. So one of the solutions we are going to have to now, unfortunately, rely on, according to the latest IPCC report, International Panel on Climate Change report. We are not likely to stay within this magic 1.5 threshold without looking at drawdown. Technological as well as biological solutions. So, over on the Big Island, Greg Asner heads our Global Airborne Observatory, and he has this plane behind you can see, which is a LiDAR plane, and that is mapping methane at point source. We're part of a global coalition called Climate Trace, tracking real-time atmospheric climate emissions. You can now go down to the facility level, and with the use of AI and big data, don't do it on your phone, but have a look on a computer, and you can now see right down to the facility level where are the highest emissions in your country. This is how I just discovered that there were some coal plants operating in New Zealand with one of our private sector companies. So there's nowhere to hide anymore with Climate Trace. And finally, Allen Coral Atlas, funded by Paul Allen. 2 years ago, we had 1% of global tropical reefs mapped. Now we have 100% mapped. And Greg is building what he hopes will be the largest coral restoration facility at Nelha on the Big Island. Because, of course, coral reefs, while they are only 2% of the ocean, are a quarter of the ocean's biodiversity and critical in preventing storm surge and the impact of megastorms. And finally, I'd like to invite you all to join us during Climate Week in New York with many partners who are here. We're thrilled to have with us the three planetary guardians, now in their 80s and 90s. And we are looking forward to partnering with Blue Planet Alliance and with the Peace Boat. We'll have some of the Blue Planet funded youth scholars for the SDGs who will be speaking on that first day with those who have been doing so much for science. I'm looking forward to seeing you all in New York. Please come and see me if you would like an invitation. And a huge thank you to all the partners here East West Centre, Hawaii Green Growth, Rotary, and everybody who is playing such an important role in helping meet our SDG goals. Mahalo nui loa.
Thank you, Amanda. Well, it's so great. I just want to, say that Amanda also did introduce us to many partners here in Hawaii, including Alan Allison from the Bishop Museum. So let's give him a big warm welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. I started this project that I'm going to tell you about quite some time ago, so I'm still at the Millennium Development Goal stage, so just want to be clear about that. So I work, actually go back to the, probably a lot of you don't know what taxonomy is. Taxonomy is a branch of science where we classify stuff. So part of that is going out and finding new species, scientifically naming them and these sorts of things. That's what I do, and I do it mainly on the island of New Guinea, which is, most people in the United States, or at least in Hawaii, know where that is, but not everybody does. But it's a large island just off the north coast of Australia. It's the world's largest and highest tropical island. The largest tropical island is Greenland, which is hardly tropical. And New Guinea is, surprisingly, is twice the size of California, about twice the size of Japan. So it's quite large. And it comprises something around 90% of the land area of the tropical Pacific. So about 30% of the plants that are found in Hawaii can trace their ancestry back to New Guinea. It was a sort of a crucible of evolution that was cranking out stuff that's spread all across the Pacific. And interestingly enough, about 2/3 of the rainforest, which covers most of the island, is still intact. It's old growth forest, it's in good shape, and so we've got lots of conservation choices. There are not many areas in the world where you can select what you want to do far ahead of the destruction that takes place. For example, here in Hawaii, of the dry forest, which covered all this section of where Honolulu is now, we have about 2% of that left. So in New Guinea, we're doing pretty well. Next. Okay, so what you've got to do when you've got that level of biodiversity and you've got those choices is you've got to put good science to figure out where you're going to select protected areas that will endure in future. So to do that, we've selected a whole bunch of areas that are crucial, strategically important areas for gaining an overall understanding of the distribution and diversity of the plants and animals on the island. Next. So to figure that out, what we do is we arrive with a whole bunch of stuff and we buy a whole bunch of food. So we're moving through the bush about 500 kilos of food and equipment. So it's a fairly big operation. And we hire a whole bunch of people to do that for us. So we're maybe about 50 people on one of these expeditions, and we end up in the back of Beyond. This is a fairly typical, you can see, good forest. The arrow points at a small little village, and we'll often stay in there or make our own camp. Next. And what we do is we set up what I call a field lab. Everything is out of bush materials except for the obvious roof with the proverbial blue tarp. We work closely with national institutions in Papua New Guinea. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I'm causing confusion here. These guys, the guy in the foreground here is from the National Herbarium. The guy in the background is from the Papua New Guinea National Museum. We work closely with those institutions, and we've trained people. One of my main guys has just got his master's, and he's going to enter a PhD program pretty soon. So we're training at the local level. Next. So we collect a bunch of stuff. Everything gets a number. Next. And it's important to recognize that we work very closely with the local people. These are people on the land, and they have an extraordinary knowledge of their area. And I don't think I know a professional biologist whose knowledge of a rainforest exceeds theirs. So it's extraordinary knowledge, and we work carefully to infuse our work with that knowledge. Next. So we get this stuff, or get all these specimens. We deposit them in museums, both in Papua New Guinea, the National Museum and the National Herbarium, and as well at Bishop Museum. Next. We publish papers describing what we found, and one of the more interesting discoveries was the world's smallest frog. It's 8 millimeters as an adult male. And it fits nicely on your little fingernail. And amazingly, it can jump 30 body lengths. So think of that. It's a good little jumper. Anyway, and we're more recently moving into molecular work. This is the wave of the future. And the diversity that we're confronting is extraordinary. It really, truly is. And if you compare it to the United States, we knew about half the amphibians and reptiles in the United States in 1867. We're about at that point in Papua New Guinea. And with the molecular work, the diversity is, as far as we can figure out, is far, far greater than we even anticipated. And I'm working with a group of students out at the University of Hawaii, and it's hard because they're learning stuff, and it's great. But I have to unlearn everything that I knew before, and now I have to relearn it. Okay, we figure out from our data and from data from other collections what its distribution is. Next. Then we overlay that in a GIS system to figure out patterns of distribution and diversity. And I draw your attention to the eastern tail. New Guinea is kind of like a perching bird with the head facing towards the northwest and the tail towards the southeast. But focus on that tail there, which is a very, very diverse area, and it's the oldest part of the island, and a lot of the plants and animals originated there. Next. So, concentrating on that area, we've most recently focused on an area called the Kokoda Track. This is a series of walking tracks that goes from just outside the capital, Port Moresby, across the main ranges at crests at about 2,200 meters, and to the north coast lowlands. It was an important battleground in World War II. It's hallowed ground for Australia, and they're providing a lot of money through something called the Kokoda Initiative to try to formally protect the area, mainly for historical purposes, but they're interested in far more than that. Next. So we conducted surveys throughout that area. On each expedition, by the way, for frogs and lizards, we find about 6 to 8 new species. So at first it was really kind of exciting, and then it kind of gets like real work. But anyway, this is an area that we're trying to get inscribe on the World Heritage List. The island of Oahu, an outline there, is on your left. It's about 10,000 square kilometers. Next. And it spans the Kokoda Track. And you can see that this area has incredible diversity. Japan, for example, has around 6,500 species of vascular plants. In this one area, we've got well over 4,000. So to inscribe something on the World Heritage List, you need to meet one of the 10 criteria. This meets at least 5. And it's got a supportive government, and we're working with Arizona State and particularly Amanda Ellis to try to get together a team that will take this to the next stage of inscription on the World Heritage List. Next. So, back to the Millennium Development Goals. So what does this do? Well, it would protect an enormous expanse of rainforest, from lowland rainforest all the way up into high mountain rainforest and even areas above timberline. And if you looked at the biodiversity of this site amongst World Heritage sites across the world, it would rank well into the top 1%. It could be the most diverse site that's on the World Heritage List if it gets there. And third is a big chunk of it is designated as a source for future drinking water for Port Moresby. So it has that kind of inbred protection associated with it. Next. So where we are. We have to develop a management plan. That's complicated. You've got to work closely with the local people. That's a arduous and challenging process, but we're hoping to begin that shortly. And the PNG government has to apply for inscription on the list. And the PNG government, like governments everywhere, tends to just want to sort of study stuff and not do much, but I think they're likely to move forward. Next. Okay, so I was thinking that there would be a raft of young people in the audience, and I would urge that, if you're young and you've got a passion for something, stick with it. Next. I did that, and I'm still at it, 50 years later. And but this is the time for the next generation to take over. We're training people in Papua New Guinea, clearly, and they're really they're very, very good biologists there and so forth, but it needs more than that. So if you're passion is for a place like Papua New Guinea, come see me. Thank you. This is a long-beaked echidna. It's a relative of the duck-billed platypus. It's found in the mountains of New Guinea. It's an egg-laying mammal, one of the few in the world. And thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you so much. That's great. And one of the really important things, I think, we were at the Bishop Museum yesterday at the Parley Air Station, and it's so necessary that as we work towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, that we really understand the nature that is part of our natural habitat. So this biology and kind of looking at different species and discovering new species is something that we should be doing all the time. So thank you so much, Alan, for sharing that important information with us. And next, I would like to invite up Mr. Francois Rogers from Blue Planet Alliance, who's going to be joining us. Give him a round of applause. And, as we were working towards Peacebuilding's Ecoship, we really were impressed with Blue Planet Foundation and the work of their organization to achieve 100% renewable energy. And that's how we started working with Blue Planet. So, let's give Francois a big round of applause. Welcome on stage.
So do I have 3 minutes? 2 minutes?
3 to 5 minutes, everybody. TED Talk style.
She said 3, then said 5. Okay. Hi, so my name is Francois Rogers. I represent the Blue Planet Alliance. Most of you know my brother, Hank Rogers. He's out there saying, we're doing this, and that's the guy out there. But he couldn't be here today, so I'm here on behalf of him. So the Blue Planet Alliance is actually a sister organization of the original foundation called the Blue Planet Foundation. We are in Hawaii. We became one of the organizations responsible for making sure Hawaii became the first state in the entire country to have a 100% renewable energy goal, which was set for 2045. Yes. So there was a signing moment. My 2 boys are in the very corner with masked face, but that's one of the 2 boys. So we did everything by doing so. Next. Yes, so this was sort of the moment with Rio that we did a lot of climate rallies with the students. A lot of the work that we did in Hawaii was not just a top-down approach. It is easy to say that the policy was passed, but in doing so, there was a lot of lobbying activities, there's a lot of stakeholder grabbing, a lot of community organizing stuff. My biggest job in this accomplishment was going classroom to classroom, talking to students, teachers, community organizers to make sure that we had a bottom-up approach of achieving this. So what did we and how did we achieve in Hawaii? So here are the key things that I took away from that moment. So one was making sure that we had a bill, we had a goal. Because without a goal, we will never achieve things. So setting the goal was number 1. The second was that we had to help the utility. You cannot say that they are at fault at all times. You have to find a way to find a common ground to make sure that we achieve such stuff. So how do we go from a oil-based model to a renewable-based model to make sure that it's a win-win situation for everybody. So that was second. And then the last thing was building the trust between the public and private sector, working with different various communities, some rural areas, Molokai, Lanai, Begalan, you name it. We were everywhere and trying to make sure this campaign was off the ground. So having said that, Hank Rogers, who will be here today, says, I didn't start this just to clean up my own backyard in Hawaii. My job is to make sure that the entire world is off of fossil fuel. And so this is why the Blue Planet Alliance was formed. As Emily mentioned earlier, we're in the same office. And we built this alliance 3 years ago, and we're being on this path now. So what are we trying to accomplish? There are a couple of things that we're trying to accomplish, but the primary goal is to make sure that what was learned in Hawaii, what has been in Hawaii, is replicated. 100% strategy. And we have 4 steps. Gail is not Hank's ex-girlfriend, no. Gail is a strategy. And first stop is groundwork. Never walk into an island assuming you know everything, right? We have to go there to learn from them. Listen to what they're going through and understand what is the hurdles, what are the opportunities. Second step in A is to agree to work together. We have to be in a mutual agreement to be able to accomplish things together. The next step is to legislate, work with the law, and make sure that there's a property going. And E is for executing, making sure that we follow through the plan. So we're not just here to say, let's put something on a paperwork. We're here to make sure that we're going to see it through. Yes, Hank might be in a wheelchair when we hit 2045, but we're fine with that, yes. So, today, we are actually actively engaging with over 30 islands around the world right now. Mostly me, yes, but we are talking to many, many different islands, and this is where we are going to be. So, the question is, do you know anybody out there that wants to join our program to seek for advice from us? Please let us know. Next. So other things that we do, and this is a very important piece, this is more an SDG 17 idea. If we don't work together, we will never accomplish things. This is what we always learn. Stop working in silos, we have to work together, because at the end of the day, we're trying to save the planet, not just pass one legislation here and there. So we believe in partnerships, and we have over 120 organizations globally today that has signed this non-binding agreement to work together collaboratively. Whether we're at the UN conferences, or we're doing a community-based project, or working in smaller rural areas, we have to work together. So this is our MOU project, and this also goes into the government. We signed this climate agreements with 3 of these territories jurisdictions right now, but Tonga, Tuvalu, and Guam. We revisit their NDCs, make sure that's on track, and our goal is to make sure that there is a legislation passed. And today we're talking to many more islands to do the same thing. So where are we at right now? By the numbers, we have over 120 MOUs organizationally signed, 3 jurisdictions signed agreement, and now in the US alone, following Hawaii's suit, there are over 20 jurisdictions in the US alone that's already followed, that has a similar 100% goal set already. Next. So other stuff that we do, we work with the youth. This Emily touched on us a little bit earlier. We're in partnership with Peacebuilding, and we do a ambassadorial program for the youth. We go from age 16 to 30 because we believe in high school kids' ambition to go forward. So we encourage that. Next. And so this is some of the images that we did in the last 2 voyages. We co-sponsored 2 of our ambassadors from Cook Island to join the Arctic voyage. When they came to the Panama side for the Latin America, we sponsored 2 ambassadors from Trinidad and Tobago, Panama, and 1 from New York. And so this is part of our contribution to the Youth for SDG program. But having said that, we have over 20 ambassadors in 9 different jurisdictions today that we're working closely. And we don't only just send them to the Peace Bowl, we also provide platforms for them to exercise their opinions, sit on the panels, send them to a youth conference in Washington, D.C. happening in October this year to work together with 100+ kids and coming up with a petition or a message to the COP that is coming up. And stuff like that is something that we like to empower. So youth empowerment is a huge piece of us. So these are some of the areas where our ambassadors are today. Next. And then so the last piece that we do is what we're launching this October. It's called the Blue Planets Fellowship Program. This is in partnership with East West Center, ASU, thank you, UOG, and many other organizations in Guam that are working together. And so what are we trying to achieve? It is easy to say for us to go to all these islands and visit them, but more importantly, what if you brought everybody here to the East West Center and listen firsthand from policymakers, legislators, organizers, utility heads to learn on how did Hawaii actually accomplish this, and take that knowledge and send them back with actual solutions. So this is not just us one-sided lecturing people. We're trying to bring them here to first teach our lessons, but also try to understand where they are today and what needs to be changed or accomplished. Next. So here are the 8 jurisdictions that have signed up for our first cohort. We have Guam, Tonga, and Tuvalu, who's part of our agreement signing. CNMI, American Samoa, Pohnpei, Cayman Islands, and Palau. So this will be our first cohort. They'll be here for about 10 days. I would like to invite some of you to our reception to meet these people and get to know them. And of course, we want them to feel like they had a sense of accomplishment while they're here. During the course of their stay, they'll learn from many different experts. And then we'll go deep dive into what they're going through and send them back with ideas, advise them, and then we'll do follow-ups, meetings, follow-ups, and some of them might return to the second part of it. But these are all our partners up here. And I'd like to recognize Amanda, ASU, for thanks for being here, and East West Center, of course, is here today, Raquel. So thank you so much for that. And then, so that is our program. So we are looking for a candidates for a second cohort, which will be in spring. So the idea is to do this every 6 months. and bring them back and just continue the conversation. So that's our big project that we're launching pretty soon, so we're excited about that. And then Hank's very famous note, he says, I don't have hope, I have determination. We cannot just have hope, we have to be determined to do things. So this is his famous thing, so I'll leave it with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Francois. Yes, Blue Planet Alliance has been one of our key partners here in Hawaii, and thanks to them we were able to connect with so many of you. So really appreciate having that partnership. And Blue Planet also did donate over $100,000 to the Maui wildfire relief as well. So thank you very much for supporting local communities. Yep. All right, so another group that's also familiar with Blue Planet's work and we've gotten to meet in different areas, Celeste Connors from Hawaii Green Growth, working towards the SDGs and so many amazing projects here in Hawaii. So everybody, please give Celeste a big round of applause.
Aloha, everybody. Good to see you all, some after quite a while. I think I'm going to share a video first. Oh, okay, it's not embedded. Well, this was like a preview of something quite exciting that actually happened or will happen. There's 2 phases to this. How many of you are familiar with the HLPF? There's so many acronyms. High Level Political Forum. How many of you are familiar with the SDGs? Now, did you know, and how many of you are familiar with the Paris Agreement? Right, and Amanda told us what happens when a country commits to the Paris Agreement. They are committed to reporting, and that's an NDC. Did you know that countries that commit to achieve the SDGs also have a reporting requirement? That's called the Voluntary National Review, or the VNR. Those are usually submitted to the United Nations formally in July during something called the High Level Political Forum, HLPF. That's the HLPF, so that's your acronym for today. And actually, now what's happening and what I'm going to talk about is all about localization, or that's what the UN calls it, and we call it local action. So sometimes what's happened is that countries have not actually submitted a report to the UN on their progress. And to date, there are 5. Do you guys know what those 5 are? Or do you know which country is among those 5? The United States, as well as North Yemen, Afghanistan, Myanmar. However, there are some leaders around the United States that have gotten fed up waiting for national governments to act. And so they've taken action called a voluntary local review. So that's a report about local action and what's happening in local communities. So New York has done a voluntary local review, LA has done a voluntary local review, and Hawaii is the first and only state to do a statewide voluntary local review 2 times. Twice. And it was fully impactful. It was a collaborative effort. It was done with many groups and organizations here. We submitted one in 2020. And we were just at the United Nations in July with Governor Green to submit the 2nd VLR for 2023. And guess what? We're going back to the UN in September for another acronym, UNGA, UN General Assembly, SDG Week, or Climate Action Week, and we're going to be submitting this report in Olelo, Hawaii for the first time. And the students, if we do get the video, which maybe we won't, and we'll have a delegation of youth actually from Kamehameha schools that have been on a journey for a year, the Ka'amaloa Pathway. So how many youth around you, how many have grown up in Hawaii? Okay. You guys have a superpower that you might not know that you have, or even if you haven't grown up or in other places. I grew up in Hawaii, in Kailua, on the windward side of Oahu. And just a personal reflection as we talk about this is I spent the SDG time, I was in the Obama White House as the Director for Energy, Climate Change, and Environment. So like Amanda, I helped negotiate the SDGs. And I felt very strongly about them because I thought they were great. They were universal. But what I didn't realize at the time, that what was driving me personally as I coordinated these interagency policy committee meetings with EPA and Treasury and DOD, that for me, sustainability was a no-brainer. I couldn't really understand why my colleagues at EPA and USAID and Treasury wanted to put water here and land here and food over here. Because when I grew up in Hawaii, in Honolulu, I knew that what happened in your upper watershed affected your coral reef and all the communities in between. And I actually knew that in my na'au, in my gut. So maybe I spent half the time doing my job at the White House confused as to why the concept of SDGs were so confusing. But you're not confused, and you're not confused, And you've been cruising around the world, bringing that mana'o to the world. But what the Ka'amaloa pathway is trying to do is accelerate that realization. It wasn't actually until I came home, I left the White House, I was teaching at Johns Hopkins, I was invited to come home and head up Hawaii Green Growth, and I will get to what we are, and I'll go through it very quickly, because this is all about the rubber hitting the road at the local level. Bottom up. And really leveraging what I think, I've lived around the world, I've been posted in many places as a former diplomat. Every place has something that's unique. We have an ahupua'a in Japan, it's a satoyama. It's tapping into those systems thinking because it's the only way we're going to achieve these SDGs. So I felt compelled to come home because I knew Hawaii had something special, and I was asked to head up this organization, Hawaii Green Growth. It's a public-private partnership. Now we're all getting pretty personal here. We know what Amanda's favorite SDGs are. Well, I have a favorite SDG, but do we? It's SDG 17, partnerships. So actually, Hawaii Green Growth is focused on economic, social, and environmental, the 3 pillars, right? We were actually formally launched at APEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Meeting. President Obama, I was at the White House at that time, didn't know about Hawaii Green Growth, but made green growth the pillar because we were coming out of the 2008 financial crisis. We needed a better way to grow our economy. So launched in 2011, and I'm just going to follow your cadence. Local action. Those of you from here might recognize these folks. This was actually during Ledge session. These are when these folks don't always get along with each other, but they came together, they signed the Malama Mandate, and they made a commitment to achieve the SDGs and also the Aloha Plus Challenge, which I'll talk about. Now, going back to superpower, did you guys know that before the SDGs were launched in 2015, that Hawaii had developed its own 2030 goals? 6 goals that are locally and culturally appropriate to Hawaii in 2014. And I'd like to say that the wheel on the left, whichever one you're looking at, the color scheme was developed before the SDGs. And this is important, so hold on to that moment. 2014, a group of local public sector, private sector, civil society leaders came together and they said in 2014, we want to have a more sustainable pathway. These are our science-based goals based on the IPCC report. And then in 2015, of course, we have the SDGs. But all 6 of Hawaii's goals actually align with the 17. So you can actually crosswalk these. So this is an image that our team developed. It also sits on our website. We have a dashboard. We have a partnership with Esri, and we're doing ArcGIS and geospatial mapping to track this. And you can actually see the crosswalk on the dashboard. I'll get to that quickly in a moment. Okay, so as a result, what's happening right now is the world is scratching its head, trying to figure out how to achieve the SDGs by 2030. And they're deriving inspiration at the local level. So much so that the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, launched a whole initiative called Local 2030 Coalition. And then they went around and tried to find places not just that had an aspiration to achieve the SDGs, but actually had a long history of focused on sustainability. Now, Hawaii has a 1,000-year history, and our partnership is explicitly based on indigenous knowledge and wisdom. So actually at this point, when they launched the coalition with UNDP, UN Habitat, and other UN offices, they designated 8 hubs around the world, or sustainability centers of excellence. Hawaii was designated as a hub. There's one in Shizuoka, Japan, also in Europe, in Paraná, Brazil. So we're now a hub as of the 2019. We were delighted to have our offices at the East-West Center. Mahalo, Raquel. And what do we do as a partnership? We actually convene our partners, we identify priorities to track progress, we measure those, because you measure what matters, right? We need to know where we're going, and we actually work on specific actions together as a partnership. It's a statewide initiative. And I talked about measuring progress. Through the partnership with Esri, that might be the largest company you've never heard of, but you certainly use their data, especially when you're looking at COVID trends. We were able to do ArcGIS and geospatial mapping. At Our Ocean in Palau, we announced the ability to issue 200 data licenses to island economies around the world. So these are our priorities, but we're helping other economies develop theirs. This is a snapshot of the type of data that you're able to track. This is our energy goal. So you can do, as I said, geospatial mapping and story maps, right? Because a lot of it is about storytelling. So you're actually able to capture stories on a digital platform, which is actually quite exciting. And this may sound boring, but as a former White House person, process matters. So you have to actually engage your community. So this is our process that we took to actually develop the local indicators and metrics. We have these 5 working groups. Our members participate actively in them. Each member working group convenes quarterly. We actually also have the Sustainability Business Forum, which is 26 of our publicly traded and privately held companies here in Hawaii that have actually committed to the SDGs and the Aloha Plus Challenge. And going back to the report, these are available online. So this last report, again, was just issued in July. It's on the website. I have the QR code that I can pass along to folks if they would like, and we can also share this presentation for those who are taking photos. But go ahead and look at it, because you know what? It shows not just what we've done. We do have bright spots, but clearly the gaps and where we need to go. And then finally, when we were designated as a hub, we're actually a island hub. There are 3 types of hubs, and we're a global thematic hub for islands. So we're asked by the United Nations to scale Hawaii's model in a locally and culturally appropriate way to other island economies. And we're now working with, I think, 33 economies. We had Niue join, and this is, to Amanda's point, this is developed and developing island economies. So we're delighted that Ireland and Netherlands are members. But what's interesting is Hawaii, Guam, and Puerto Rico are members with the United States, right? So you have an equal seat at the table of local or subnational, as they call it, regional and national governments. It's very unique, but really gets more connected to where the action is happening at the local level. And this is where we are working currently. And I think that's the last slide. But I will send the video because it's actually the foreword of the report, if you read it, was actually written by the Ka'amalo Pathway students at Kamehameha. It's their very own words. That's what's being translated into Aloha Hawaii right now. And the delegation of youth will be at the United Nations this September with Governor Green to submit the report. And Governor Green has been invited to speak as one of the high impact initiatives at the United Nations. So we also have lots of programming happening later this month, and I'd be delighted to share that with any of our partners here that will be there. So mahalo nui. Thank you for listening today, and thank you, Emily, for the partnership. We're delighted to be with you.
Thank you, Celeste. It's so great to learn about everything that's happening in Hawaii, because I think the Aloha Plus initiative, you know, I met Celeste, I think we met at the UN for the first time, and I was so impressed. I was like, wow, this Aloha Plus initiative is so great, and they're doing so many things in Hawaii. And now that we're here, we thought this would just be another wonderful opportunity to kind of share some of the work that Hawaii is already achieving and demonstrating at the UN. And I really like what Celeste mentioned as far as youth as well, because we have one of our Youth for the SDGs representatives here. So let's invite Isato Kimura to the stage. Isato was one of the younger participants. I think Emma, his sister, beat him as being the youngest. And they both joined us on board the ship. And we were in the Arctic. Here you go. We started our voyage together in London, and then Isato got to join not only the first voyage from London to Norway and Iceland, but also the second voyage in Latin America. So he has quite a lot to share. Everybody give him a big round of applause. Thank you, Isato.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isato Kimura, and I'm a high school student attending Kanu School here in Honolulu. And I am also a Youth for the SDGs Hawaii representative. And this summer, I had the opportunity to board a peace boat on a program called Youth for the SDGs, in which about 11 young individuals from around the world, incredible individuals, focused on the SDGs and promoting a good change for the climate. And I was fortunate enough to be part of 2 programs, which Emily mentioned. The one from Norway up to Iceland, and another one down from Panama to Mexico. And it was also very incredible. And each voyage had amazing individuals focused on different areas of the SDGs. And on the voyage, my fellow participants demonstrated incredible passion and dedication to the work on the SDGs. And seeing them every day bring, new ideas and energy also inspired me to spread my own knowledge about where I'm from. And I was very honored to be, with such talented and incredible individuals. And they all each had their unique area of expertise, and I'm really grateful for Emily for the opportunity to join this. And while on board, each of the youth gave a workshop on their own work, which expanded my knowledge not only on their own work, but also the cultural and traditional perspectives on where they're from. So this is Winton from the Blue Planet Alliance giving a workshop on his coral restoration program in the Cook Islands. Yeah, the workshops included like the Palau Pledge, coral restoration programs, and climate action through art, which were frequent and engaging. And we also had the opportunity to connect with passengers on board, giving them an introduction to the Sustainable Development Goals as we are sailing under the SDGs as the Pacific Road and as the Peaceboat. Off the ship at the ports of call, we learned about the history of the regions as well as how the area was being affected by climate crisis, which included trips to the Arctic Expedition, the Arctic Expedition Museum on the left, and we also did about 2 whale watching tours in order to learn about how they were being affected by the rising climate crisis. And my friend Mitchell and I had the unique experience of playing chess on a Norwegian mountain. And this is one of the many memorable moments on this trip. And outside of the workshops and activities, I made bonds with the youth that I'm sure will last a lifetime. And I'm certain they will continue to spread their knowledge among the community. The Youth for SDGs program, it really provided me with an incredible experience, and it taught me a lot more about the SDGs than what I previously had not known before I boarded the voyage. And it taught me through a global lens, to look at things through a global lens. It's not only just sea. And it also bonded me with incredible young youth from around the world. And I'm so grateful to everybody who made this possible. And I'm sure that this program will continue to, breed young change makers that will change the world through a global lens. And I think this is just a great opportunity for everybody. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Taco. Yeah, good job. Thank you so much. And, it's so important for us to have young people leading the way and actually creating the solutions, for the future. And for us, it's a big pleasure, of course. We've had so many young people join this voyage, but it was exciting for us to come on board together from London with youth from Hawaii. It was one of our first time having so many young people from Hawaii join us on this voyage. So, yeah, really excited. And we hope that each of your organizations will be able to bring a youth on board for future programs with us. So thank you again for Blue Planet Alliance for the co-sponsorship and co-collaboration. Thank you also, Amanda, for sending also youth on board. And yeah, a big round of applause for Isato and all the youth who graduated. Congratulations. Well, I'd like to bring up next Mr. Joshua Porter, because the reason I joined Peaceboat as a youth, I joined back in 2004, and I was hired by Josh. So I would just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on board. And how much fun is this guy? Yeah. So thank you so much, Josh. I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Get a mic. Aloha. How you doing, everybody? Nice to see you. This is my my USC hat. The reason I'm wearing a USC hat, a crazy big, in the sun, gardening, Maui USC hat, is because we just dropped our daughter, Julia, 19 years old, right, Susie? Susie's my wife right over there. 19 years old, off at USC to study mechanical engineering at Bitterbeak. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right? I mean, But that story started a while back, and she was about 6 months old when we came here with Peaceboat, so I'm a Peaceboat staff. Oh, wow. So I'm going to take my hat off. I just wanted to give a little love to USC. And Peaceboat is this kind of singular organization in the world, It's so special I can't even describe to you how it's impacted me, my wife, my family. But I think there's something like 80,000 individuals have traveled the world on a global voyage because of Peaceboat. Started in 1983, and you'll have heard the arc and the story of this awesome organization, But I remember coming to Hawaii. We just had our daughter. She was 6 months old. And we were like, where are we going to live? And how are we going to take all these ideas that we got from... I personally was on board 4 global voyages. 35. Sanju Gokai, Sanju Nanakai, 35, 37. Yonju Kai, 40, 43. Yonju Sankai. And in like my early 20s or something, and I got a chance to see this global snapshot of the world. Also happened to be Sanjugokai. The first one was during 2001, so 9/11, right? And you got a chance to see what the world was like, but you got these kind of revolving snapshots. And then you just felt like you understood kind of how the world was moving at that moment in time. And being in your early 20s, it was kind of overwhelming, and you were inspired. You're surrounded by a lot of people like yourselves all the time. It's like oxygen. You're just filled with inspiring, brilliant, wonderful people. And we had our child, you know, from Peaceboat. She's a Peaceboat baby, one of the first Peaceboat babies. And just dropped her off at USC. So when we brought her here, we came here for what's called Sakinori. Senken was the first to go. Senken is you go in advance to a port and you check it out. And then Sakinori, you go and you do the port work, right? So we came here as Senken and then Sakinori. And we brought Julia. She was 6 months old. And we went out to West Maui, to Makaha and Waianae. And we were involved in a bunch of programs there. And we brought Julia. And Julia is like the most petite baby you could ever imagine. She's, you know, really super tiny. We bring her out there and we're picking, you know, plumeria for the lei making thing and lots of really fun stuff. But we brought her to Lohikalo, right? And I remember her feet going in the Lohikalo, and she, the energy was just like flowing through her like a lightning bolt. I don't know how else to describe it. And I think that I'm sorry I forgot your name, but the lovely woman over here that just spoke, you talked about how it's in your gut, your manao, right? Is that what you said? No. And I totally get that, because she grew up in this environment because we were inspired by Peaceboat, and we were able to like live in this unbelievable environment. And she now speaks Olelo Hawaiian in certain times. Like when she talks about things, she might say, "Oh, there's an aqueduct," and she'll use the word "ave" or something like that. It's so amazing, right? So anyway, I wanted to just tell a little bit about our story. And I wanted to express my appreciation coming from Maui with the wildfires, everything that happened. You know, when we're in the midst of that, Peaceboat and the disaster relief program comes out, and Maria, wherever you are, Maria shows up, and a couple of other friends from Tokyo show up, and I really felt this amazing organization was right there as soon as we needed each other. And that's really what Peaceboat is about to me. And I just kind of wanted to share that with everybody and say thank you to Peaceboat and say how much this organization means to us. I'll say a little bit about the stuff we do and the things that we're engaged with. I don't have a presentation right now, but I can tell you that one thing that happens when you're on Peaceboat is that you get this kind of idea that you can do anything. You kind of start to believe that anything is possible to be accomplished. And so who here has been on a global voyage? Who here wants to go on a global voyage? A lot of hands, right? So it.
I don't qualify
Anybody can go on Peaceboat, right? And that same thing will happen to you. You'll just be absolutely infected with the idea that you can do anything you set your mind to do. In our world, you know, we came out of that and we moved to Maui, and I built a renewable energy solar installation business, installed about 400 solar installations over the course of a decade. Residential, commercial, utility, that was a way to make money, but also do something that was consistent with Peaceboat values. Sold that, and then ultimately moved into doing a radio show called The Solar Coaster. By the way, check it out on YouTube, check it out on podcast, iTunes, Spotify, every major platform out there. We do film work with large companies in the renewable energy sector. But the reason I bring this up is not to toot my own horn, but to tell you that it's been such a pleasure, and I got that inspiration with Peaceboat, right? And now we're in a place where we're actually testing equipment for these large manufacturers around the world. So, and the thing that I want to kind of convey, if I can, is that I have such hope, despite all the problems that have happened in Maui right now, and that's really terrible and disheartening, and it actually is directly related to energy and land management, but at the same time I have hope because I can see how we're testing all this equipment and the robustness of the equipment from the inversion. I'm going to geek out a little bit. I'll try not to geek out too much. But the inversion, the solar panels, the EV charging, the fuel cells. We're literally putting a fuel cell on our house in about a month. One of the first ever in a residential setting. That's just a backup to a battery, right? The bottom line is this. It creates such resilience in the face of outages It creates such amazing metrics in terms of carbon offset and unbelievable kind of autonomy. And you just feel encouraged because you're like, I'm not relying on a utility, and I'm not a big fan of utility, guys. You're going to hear that in my language. You're not relying on fossil fuel being generated centrally, strung on copper wire and dead trees running to a house over here. Now you can have your PV like we have. You can have huge amounts of PV. You can have storage. Now you can move that into your electric vehicle. You can drive on sunshine. All these things were theoretical a couple of years ago. They're 100% real right now. I literally look at my apps and I say, wow, right now my battery's full. All my loads are met. I want to go drive home and capture that sunshine so I can drive for the rest of the week in the EV that's available, right? My point is just to be, there's a positivity, there's the potential here that's so exciting. So I wanted to share my appreciation for Peaceboat and the fundraising for the disaster relief program. I want to talk about how important it was to our family, and I think how important it is to the world. There's loads of things I could say about tech and geek and all that. I'll end with this. We're involved in the trade show world and the conference world, and we have a partnership with what's called RE+, the Solar Coaster does. RE+ is going to do the largest, let's say, clean tech convening event in the world. That's in Las Vegas in 1 week's time. We have a main stage event where I have Doug McLeod, who's the former Energy Commissioner of Maui County, Jenny Potter, former Public Utilities Commissioner, and we're going to be talking specifically about energy in Hawaii and about what happened in the wildfires and launching RE+ Hawaii, which is happening at the Aloha Hilani Resort in Waikiki on January 22nd and 23rd of this upcoming year. So we're trying to bring all this wonderful kit, all this wonderful tech, all the power of the business world and the innovation in the renewable energy space to Hawaii to help us meet the goals that Francois talked about. So that's just a little bit of our story. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And really aloha.
Thank you, Josh. It's so great to have you. Yeah, share more about your work and just about, everything that you've done over the years. Like Josh said, embodying the message of Peaceboat, starting something with solar energy and feeling like you can do anything. I was like, that's kind of true. That's kind of the Peaceboat way. So I feel like, all of you are going to be doing things like this if you come on Peaceboat, starting your companies, moving the needle forward. And I think we'll be joining you all when we come to Hawaii as well. There's so much leadership here already. So thank you so much, Josh. Yeah, thank you. And, the role of education and leadership in that role as well is something I wanted to highlight because Josh, I mentioned he hired me, right? And I was a volunteer and I was a Spanish teacher. So his role was being in charge of the English and Spanish teaching volunteers, which is part of our educational programs. It's called GET, Global English Espanol Training. We also have volunteer opportunities for translators on board or interpreters between English, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Spanish. So there's lots of opportunities for learning on board. And we recently have had the pleasure of having also a university professor here from Hawaii join us from the Arctic also to Latin America on our last voyage. So I'd like to welcome up another academic partner, Mr. Ihito Kimura from the University of Hawaii.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Ihito Kimura. I'm at the University of Hawaii, and I'm in the Department of Political Science there. And I was actually, as Emily was saying, a passenger on Peaceboat this last voyage on the 114th. I boarded with my family in London, and we went up to the Arctic, down across the Atlantic through Central America, and then to Hawaii here, and we got off here. And during that time, I also had the opportunity to give a couple of lectures and workshops and really sort of get to know the kind of culture and institution that is Peaceboat. And I'm very grateful for that experience. So in the short time today, what Emily asked me to speak about is sort of my experience, what I saw as both a passenger and also as an educator on this ship. I've heard Peaceboat described in some ways as a floating university, or maybe kind of a floating college town. And I would add that it's one that really shares a core set of values around social justice, around environment and sustainability, and of course around peace broadly defined. And as an educator, I've always really embraced the old adage of, students are really not vessels to be filled, but fires to be lit, right? And I really feel as if Peaceboat is a place that really embodies the idea of a transformational experience for everyone that is on board. And the ways that I really witness this on Peaceboat is through what I would call problem-based, experiential, and peer-to-peer learning, right? So you can move to the next slide. I say problem-based because the learning on board the ship really revolves around things like lectures, around workshops, and they featured academics, journalists, cultural practitioners, filmmakers, community leaders, activists, all engaging in really the big questions and problems of the day. Issues of the environment, of gender, of education, of poverty, peace and justice, among a lot of the other issues that are articulated in the SDGs. And this is just an example of the daily calendar that comes out and the kind of activities and events that are packed on board. It comes out every single day. It's two-sided. So this is actually one guest that we had on board, Dr. Patricia Moguel Viveros, and she was a scholar and educator from Mexico, and she lectured on board the ship and also talked with the SDG youth about indigenous agroforestry and how it's a critical component of global agrobiodiversity. Next slide, please. I saw experiential learning, where many of the organized activities and tours really focused on the things that we actually talked about on the ship. And so there were visits to natural reserves in Guatemala, a river cleanup in London, engaging policymakers in Panama, meeting NGOs in Mexico, and doing water testing in the port. And actually, this is a photo from yesterday where they were doing that with our partners here. Next slide, please. And finally, I say peer-to-peer learning because, like was being described earlier, I saw 18 to 30-year-olds, leaders from around the world, really teaching each other what was happening in their own communities, the issues that they faced, the work that they did, and how to go forward. And also, there was a culture on board where the passengers in the ship were also hosting self-organized events about their own passions, interests, and expertise as well. So I do want to be clear-eyed here to some extent. It's not necessarily all rainbows and unicorns. I think there are inevitable trade-offs in some ways, right? When you're circumnavigating the globe in 108 days, there is going to be more breadth than there is necessarily going to be depth. As previous presenters have noted, we are sailing on a ship. We're on board a ship that does emit carbon and leave a large footprint. It's part of an industry, and it's part of a group that really engages in warming the planet. And there is some degree of thinking about how, no matter how well intended, being on board allows us to see the world and engage the world from a privileged perspective. But all that said, I think I really remain inspired by the vision of the 4 university students that started this organization in the 1980s as a way to promote really grassroots, people-to-people interactions in Asia and around the world. And I really see Peaceboat in many ways as akin to kind of a living organism, born and forged in a particular historical, political context, really shaped by our world's events, growing, globalizing, transforming, and really reinventing itself in many ways. And so, like many of you, I really hope we go forward today and in the future, forging new relationships, embracing partnerships, SDG number 17, and to make Peaceboat and our wider world a better place for us and for our Kiki. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ehito. Thank you so much. Great to have you on board. Ehito was actually, we took a questionnaire to the students who joined the Youth for SDGs program, and we asked them things like, what did you think about the program on board, and what was some of your most inspiring moments? And Ehito's lecture won the most inspiring lecture as a workshop 2 times in a row. Congratulations. Yeah, it was so great to have you on board. And this week I was very fortunate to visit the University of Hawaii And we hope to be having more programs and practicums, even for graduate students or internships with us as well. So thank you so much for those introductions. And also the East-West Center has been another great partner for education. So Raquel, please come join us on board. We're so excited to have you here. Thank you for being with us.
Aloha, everybody. Thank you for bearing with all of our presentations. I'll try to make mine brief. So again, my name is Raquel Ke'alalokahi Aki. I am Kanaka Maui, born, raised, and residing on the island of Oahu. I'm here representing the East-West Center. And before I lead into my presentation, I'd just like to first mahalo the Peace Boat for their care and all of the aid that they provided to our Maui ohana that were impacted by the Lahaina wildfires. Your respect and compassion to Hawaii as the host culture is beautiful to witness, and we appreciate you and your service. Returning to my role to share about my home organization, which is the East-West Center, I'd like to first note that I'm filling in for President Susie Var-Islam, which many of you are familiar with. So she's a very dynamic, engaging speaker, so please bear with me, it's big shoes to fill. She's currently traveling across Southeast Asia, and she sends you all her aloha. Before we go into the meat of the presentation, I'd also like to share with you an oli that was written for the East-West Center by Kumu Kione Nunez as a means of welcoming people into the East-West Center community. So it goes, Hele mai kahikina, hele mai kaulana a kane, hele mai a ike mai ke kahi I ke kahi, hele mai I ke ia hale, e ho ike I hana no e ao, ina poe a pauloa, hele mai maka ike, hele mai me ke aloha e, ya la, ya hoi a mama ua noa e. And what this means is, let the East come, let the West come and see each and every one. Come to this dwelling that shows the works of all the people. Come with understanding, come with love. This is it, this is all, it is free. So I just wanted to share that because it is very much in alignment with the mission and purpose of Peaceboat, of bringing people together under the banner of mutual understanding and collaboration. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the center, we were established by Congress in 1960 as an educational institution to foster better relations and understanding among the people of the US, Asia, and the Pacific through cooperative study, training, and research. I'd also like to highlight that Congress recognized the unique place of Hawaii and that it goes far beyond being geographically strategic. That what makes the center special, what I like to call the center's secret sauce, is Hawaii's culture, its community, and its values. So this is an exciting time at the center. We are now under the leadership, as I previously mentioned, of President Var-Islam. And a little over a year ago, we published a very ambitious and robust 5-year strategic plan. It's based on the following 5 strategic pillars. Pillar 1, developing and equipping future leaders. So it's an influential and active network of emerging Indo-Pacific leaders who are innovative, culturally and technically competent, and address areas of common concern. The network is currently in an active and engaged alumni base of 70,000 strong. We have 29 people that have become heads of state, and over 300 have gone on to become ambassadors. Pillar 2, convening impactful dialogue through mutual understanding to advance regional cooperation and collaboration. Partner with the Pacific Islands. We hope to serve as an expertise and active hub for Pacific Island researchers in the areas of arts, economy, civil society, government, and environment. Pillar 4, foster environmental solutions. We hope to create environmental expertise and collaborative action, generating just community-based solutions that improve the ecosystem health, mitigate climate change, and foster human resilience. Supporting good governance. A cooperative and international network of public servants and civil society leaders empowered to foster transparent and inclusive institutions of peace and resolution. Guiding these next 5 years and these 5 pillars are our 3 core values: respect, innovation, and collaboration. These are the foundational elements with what we base our scholarships, seminars, publication, research, and short-term programming on. The center, as I like to put it, very much has a kitchen sink approach to regional issues. We throw everything we can at it, so we have kind of programming and research that spans the gamut. So simply put, East West Center fosters an active and engaged global community of future leaders and change makers to help advance sustainability, equity, peace, and prosperity. If you have an area of interest, the center has a program or project for you. So if you're interested in learning more about the center and our programs, please come find me. I will be here for the duration of the day. And I also have a QR code that I can share with everybody, which will kind of outline what we have going on right now and how to get in contact with specific people. In closing, I'd like to also shout out our Waisili program participants who are here with us right now. So they are part of our Young Southeast Asia Leadership Program. We have 3 of them right here. And I'd also like to mahalo Maria and Emily and all of the Peace Boat staff who have made this gathering possible. Our partners with ASU and Blue Pacific Alliance, and of course the University of Hawaii and Manoa. And come find me if you'd like to talk some more. I'll be here all day. Mahalo nui and malama pono.
Thank you, Raquel. I've been really impressed with everything that's happening at the East West Center. I think one of my first times to visit was for the Pacific Island Conference of Leaders, PICLE, which took place this year, where Blue Planet Alliance organized a side event, and I was invited to come support, and that was a really great experience. And each time since then, I've just seen the East West Center really taking leadership and building bridges. And as she mentioned, Raquel mentioned the research and creative problem solving and the bridges between the East and the West and the Pacific coming together. And I think it is due to the Hawaiian culture and tradition that's been such a success. So thank you very much, Raquel. Great to have you here. And next I'd like to also invite up another peace builder. We have Jose, who's going to join us here on stage, who's been working with so many different organizations. I want to let him introduce how many hats he has, because there's quite a few, everybody. So everyone, give a round of applause for Jose. Thank you.
Well, I'll try to be as brief as possible and not make it sound like a class here, but thank you so much for just being here today. So I'm initially employed with the University of Hawaii at Manoa as a conflict and peace specialist, so I am there to provide services to students around mediation, facilitation, conflict education, or peace building, and really just proactive programming. And so that's what really caught my eye about Peaceboat, just because all the proactive work that's being done here, and really all the amazing proactive work that all of you in the community are doing as well. I'm also happy to be an affiliate faculty with the Matsunaga Institute, teaching with them, and I have been collaborating with them for almost 8 years now, so that's where I was previously. But yeah, so I'd like to talk about a peace building session. I always love to ask folks, like, what does peace mean to you? So we're going to make this a little interactive, just popcorn style. Yes?
Kind of the definition I came up with the other day for a test was, I guess, the balance.
Oh, yes, here's a mic. Wow, fancy. Okay. So I guess as I was kind of started off, I was doing actually a test for a peace course in UH Manoa, and I guess the answer I kind of gave was, I guess, the balance between the individual and the collective.
Okay, wonderful.
So, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
All right, anybody next? Just raise your hand. Feel free to show up.
No wars.
Yes.
Yes. No wars.
Yes. Thank you.
Everybody, can I just recognize real quick? I'm going to steal this moment. This is Mrs. Ann Wright. Can you just, kind of stand up for a second? She's been on Peaceboat how many times? I think 2 times as a guest speaker, and also part of our Article 9 campaign for the Peace Constitution. So everybody, please come talk to her afterwards. She's got lots of great experiences. Okay. All right, who's got another idea for peace?
So one of the things I want to get across, because I'm conscientious of time, so
yeah.
There is no right answer. So just want to give you a heads up. So whatever you may have thinking of, if it's a walk on the beach, if it's a poem, if it's just some silence, if it's no war, that's the beauty of peace. What I'm trying to bring to you is that there's different perspectives in life. We all come into this room with different lived experiences, different perspectives. Sometimes that may lead to conflict, but hopefully we start talking about peace and peace building, specifically relationship building. That's really what I love to talk about and why I'm calling this a peace building session. So think about what are the skill sets that you need to develop some healthy, positive relationships. Think about that person that's special in your life. What makes it special? Yes?
Empathy.
Empathy. Wonderful. Another one.
Communication. They know how to listen.
Listening. Yes. Active listening specifically.
Service.
Service. Humor. Just laughter. Compassion. Communication. So that is exactly the work that the skill sets you need to build peace, to develop more wonderful relationships in your life. Just today, attending today, I imagine you practice some of those skill sets as you got a tour, as you were having lunch, as you've been, sitting to some friends or some complete strangers. So hopefully you come out of today with some additional relationships, some additional peace building skills that you developed. You can go to the next one, yeah. We like to focus, specifically I talked about positive peace. Yes, the absence of war is a focus of negative peace. But let's focus toward positive peace. When we talk about, things that heals trauma, promotes justice, restores relationships, it's hard work, but we can definitely make progress toward this. You all have shown a lot of great examples, and I know not all of you got a chance to present today about how you've been working on positive peace. So thank you for everyone who's been doing that and for all that you're doing. We can go to the next one. Conflict transformation. I love to talk about this specifically because we need to get away from the concept of conflict resolution. Because the reality is nothing's ever resolved. Best case scenario, we manage it and it transforms. We grow from that experience. We learn from those experiences. Hopefully we heal at the same time. Conflict happens as a matter of perspective. Is it a base? Is it some faces? And really, most of the problems with now exist, people understand the difference between what's an argument and a discussion. So in an argument, find out who's right. Well, the discussion is really like, what is right? These are just some little tidbits that I provide as I do presentations around campus and the community, because I'm trying to get folks to shift their mindset into what peace is. So, and really, let's talk about relationship building once more. Developing healthy, positive relationships. Next one. So, I'm going to share a little story about the Matsunaga Institute. There's a lot of great academic programs there, undergraduate certificate, graduate certificate, a major. During this pandemic, Amanda, you're on the screen, hugging Maya back at the Anne Frank exhibit back in 2018. So this is where the stories have gone. There was an opportunity to be involved in a documentary around Sakura and Pearls, bringing hibakusha from Hiroshima and then Pearl Harbor survivors to talk about healing and resiliency. During the pandemic, there was a lot of opportunity to have dialogue around and storytelling around how do you overcome these challenges, peace building in your fields, different indigenous communities overcoming more challenges, and you can find it all on the YouTube channel. But really, I share with you how it's all interconnected. One brief story. So, Ira Orbas out of the Sami community in Finland shared with us this. He's like, our major way to fund, our business is reindeer herding. And unfortunately, all the forests are being cut down. And they're like, why? And keep in mind, this is May 2020. And he's like, it's the right wood to make toilet paper. Where was everybody in May 2020? Rushing to stock up on toilet paper. So that connected a lot with folks here in Hawaii who were like, I thought we were just getting a basic necessity. I had no idea that I might be negatively impacting another community halfway around the world. So just think about how things are more interconnected. What are the dominoes in your life? And how is it what you're doing maybe impacting what exactly? So I just share a little bit of story. There's lots of stories. And I encourage you to reach out to folks of all ages and different communities to learn about their stories, because you never know where it might lead. Another side story is we started doing these dialogues with Nagasaki, these 3-4 hour sessions. They brought in hibakusha. We brought in someone who saw the attack in Pearl Harbor when they were 6. We brought in students. They brought in their students. And that eventually led to an in-person visit where we ended up visiting the Miyagi Prefecture in Japan and seeing about the impact of climate change on that area. Unfortunately, since 2016 to now, the salmon population has gone down to 6% because the water's getting hotter. The salmon are going where the cold water is. It used to be 6 months to a year to grow oysters. Now it takes 2 to 3 years. So that's just a little brief examples. Brought some students to Nagasaki for a conversation about perspectives of the atomic bomb. We all know atomic bomb is bad. We look at the history though. When you bring students from Singapore, South Korea, Malaysia, you look at the history, the unspoken history sometimes. Many of those countries got independence because of the atomic bombing. So it's not pretty, it's complicated, but it's good to be having those dialogues. And so I leave you with these opportunities to come together. Also just want to mention the Institute for Climate and Peace, which is doing some amazing work. Unfortunately, a lot of them happen to be doing some great work out in Montgomery, Alabama right now, and then some other work. Seeds of Peace, local organization as well, doing workshops and peace-building sites. There's a QR code, you can connect with me, but I'm at the university, and I hope I can all connect with you at some point as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Jose. Amazing work. I mean, it's pretty hard to sum up all of the incredible projects that he's doing in a short time, but Jose, we were introduced, actually through Hito here, and we are trying to also think about, what are the possible peace programs that we can have on board the ship, especially as Peaceboat is very educated around many young people coming on board to work towards nuclear disarmament and supporting our youth champions in that region as well. So hoping that we can have more young people coming on board, exchanging with survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki and learning about the history of Pearl Harbor here and how we can, have that reconciliation together. So thank you so much to Jose. And I think one more academic from the University of Hawaii. Here we have Ari Einstead. Welcome, Mr. Center for Future Studies.
All right, Peaceboat Honolulu, how are y'all doing? We have some ladies for Emily and the Peaceboat. Thank you so much for your dedication. Really appreciate your work. My name is Ari Eisenstadt. I'm at the Hawaii Research Center for Future Studies, which is a part of the University of Hawaii Political Science Department. And over the last few years, I've had the opportunity to present at about 12 different UN agencies, talking about the future of sustainable development. And now here at the University of Hawaii, you can keep cruising there. I teach different classes around future studies, human rights, the Peace Institute, but also astrobiology and Earth and planetary exploration technology, and looking at the future of human rights in outer space. And with these future studies methodologies, we really look at that framework of sustainable development. For the first time in human history that all the governments of the world have come together to agree to something of having economic, social, and environmental justice for everyone on our planet. So looking at that futures methodology, we can talk a little about Jim Gator. He was the director for the Center for Future Studies, and he talked about that we don't predict the future, we look at future scenarios. And there are 4 different scenarios that we can think of. The first is continued growth, just a linear path going forward, business as usual. Next is limits and discipline. You can think of a recession, constriction of resources. Then there's decline and collapse, things falling apart. And finally is transformation, an exponential growth curve ahead. And we can apply this framework to these big issues that we're experiencing globally. You can look at it at an organizational scale, even at a personal level. But let's take it for climate change, for instance. We can think of different scenarios around greenhouse gas emissions. If we don't do anything, we're seeing this collapse scenario, discipline and continued growth. And then imagining transformation where we're able to draw down that carbon in the atmosphere. We can apply that and keep looking at temperature scenarios of collapses, the worst case scenario, all the way down to transformation of achieving those goals. We can keep going across the board of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, continuing on to sea level rise here. And so think about these 4 different scenarios and why I think transformation is so compelling right now. And because of that idea of exponential growth, that you think about exponential growth can be a little sneaky because you're going at a low curve and then it starts to climb because it doubles in size. And it's hard for us to think about. If you take 30 steps linearly, you're 30 feet away. But if you take 30 steps exponentially, you're 26 times around the Earth. And we are now in exponential times. And we can see that by the growth of our technology. We now have trillions of dollars in computing power from the 1970s in our pockets, in our phones. And this is following Moore's law, this idea that the technology, that computers are doubling in power and halving in size and price every year. And now we're reaching this knee of the curve where we're seeing this incredible growth in artificial intelligence, information communication technology, and especially now in blue innovation and what is really going to allow us to achieve the sustainable development goals, especially from that environmental perspective. We see that also things like life expectancy, GDP per capita, people living in poverty, energy capture, percent living in democracy. We're truly living in exponential times. So this is now an updated picture of this idea of the blue marble. We first got the full view picture of our planet back when we went to the moon. And it really spurred on Earth Day, the Environmental Protection Act, all of these movements from being able to really see the Earth from afar. This now is the highest resolution picture from a new satellite from the European Space Agency. But it's really about having these new paradigms of perspectives, of being able to look at our planet. Nainoa Thompson of the Polynesian Voyaging Society talks about island Earth, and that we're all crew on this canoe going through space. And conversely, Buckminster Fuller talks about that we're on spaceship Earth, and we're all crew members there. Astronauts have this unifying experience. We call it the overview effect, or the orbital perspective, new ways of looking at our planet and our system. And here on Peaceboat, we're really getting to experience that firsthand. Another paradigm shift I think is really cool. This is a GIF, and this is the solar system family portrait of the Voyager spacecraft. This was taken in 1990, 4 billion miles away from Earth. Voyager is still going out now. It's 14 billion miles away. And it was the first time that we've ever been able to see all of the planets together. So there's our little pale blue dot, as Carl Sagan talks about it, our planet Earth. But we now know that there is water on Mars. There's water on the moon. There's water on the moons of Jupiter. And so as we look back, on 1,000 years ago on those original Polynesian voyagers, we can start to think about the far future 1,000 years from now, and that the Peaceboat, the Ecoship, really are the models for what it looks like as we start to become multiplanetary. And how do we do that in a way that honors human rights, that honors the environment, that honors justice, in a way that we can make sure that we're not repeating those mistakes of the past as we go and explore and settle new worlds. And so I want to close with my wife, Zephanie Smith-Eisenstadt, back here at Design a Project with the United Nations Association. And we also have our leaders, Elma and Tierra here, student leaders at the UNA USA UH Manoa chapter. And she designed a system around my SDG dream, modeled after Martin Luther King's dream speech, and talking about and really personalizing the SDGs, of what it means for you. What is your vision for the future of humanity for 2030? And so we want to invite you all to participate and become a UNA member, to join the Global Engagement Summit and the Leadership Summit, going to DC and sharing these visions with members of Congress to fully support the United Nations and the work of all these wonderful organizations. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your leadership, and looking forward to learning more from you all soon. Aloha.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you so much. It's interesting, when I think about blue innovation and I'm in Honolulu, I think of Ari's work for the future, because he's always been cutting edge and bringing together science, art, technology, and education in a fun and vibrant way that gets young people really excited about the SDGs. So thank you, Ari, for your passion. And also for the future of our children. And so I'd like to bring up our next guest now, Keone Kealoha. We, just came to Hawaii in July, of this year, and for the first time, we learned about a great initiative called the Pledge to Our Keiki, to the future of our children. And so on our last voyage, we signed the pledge for the first time, and it was 1,400 people on board, and this time we have 1,800 people on board. So yeah, Keone, thank you so much for being here. Welcome on board.
All right. Aloha, kako, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces and, of course, some new folks, too. My name is Keone Kealoha. I'm the executive director of a local nonprofit, been around about 15 years, called Kanu, Hawaii. One of the initiatives that we've taken on is something called Pledge to Our Keiki, and that's Hawaii's version of what Palau kind of showed is possible with the pledge. I think they're getting upwards near about 1 million signatures on their pledge at this point. We're still around 4,000 or 5,000, but that's because we're just kind of kicking it off and we're doing it very grassroots. I think this was our event that we did at the state capitol, kind of launching it with our government, state government, local government. We had some mayors, had about 25 legislators that came out and signed the pledge that day. Many folks that shared. But the pledge, I think this particular one's a little different in that it was written by students, by our kids from different islands and different schools across Hawaii. And this particular event, another picture from it, we invited the president of Palau, President Whips, to come out, and he did. And this was the day before Earth Day. And following the signing event, the next day we had Ealae, which is Sunrise Oli, that we had different cultural practitioners lead on different islands across Hawaii. And that, coupled with something called Dive for Earth Day, which was the attempted largest underwater cleanup in history that we did with partners Aqualung and PADI. And we had 12 sites across Hawaii that we did this cleanup at. That was enough to get the attention of EarthDay.org, who said that kind of event, having a pledge created by kids, having political leadership sign it and make a public commitment, having a cultural aspect that celebrates the planet, celebrates our renewal commitment to place, and also doing something action-based, attempting a large-scale cleanup event was enough to garner the biggest activation for Earth Day in 2023. And so we appreciate that partnership that we have with them. This year is just some of the things that are happening coming up in the months ahead. So we just launched our ambassador program. So we have 20 high school seniors, and then they have juniors and sophomores that are supporting them on different islands across Hawaii. They're going to be taking the pledge out to their schools, their communities, and looking at ways that they can support their community through action. I think the other piece that I wanted to share with you about the pledge is that it's not just a pledge in and of itself, it's actually connected to action. And the idea is that you make a commitment and then you follow up by doing something. And so when you sign the pledge, you're directed to volunteer opportunities from nearly 300 local nonprofits on every island in Hawaii. We're going to continue to grow that month after month, and we're building more partnerships to share that with our visitors through hotels, airlines, and rental car companies. And we're also doing that through our schools with our youth, kind of leading that effort on the ground. And so, yeah, it's kind of a local version of Palau Pledge. It's something that we can do here. It's something that we can get behind and support. And so we'd love you to sign the pledge. We were able to, through this partnership with the Peace Boat, think about it and how we can connect it to other cultures and other languages. So we just launched the Nihongo version of the pledge, which is available. So if you have your mobile phone or other device, you can just sign the pledge. It takes a few moments, and then once you do that, you can take a look at some of the volunteer opportunities that are available for you to make difference in Hawaii. So that's it. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We're going to sign a pledge up here, Keone, so I think you might need to stay on the stage. And we have here today for all of us the 1,800 people from Peace Boat, who we have the International Director, Sumiko Hatakeyama, and also Keone, if you want to come sign up here on the stage, we'll have our signing ceremony all together. So yeah, come on up. Let's sign it together. All right. And you have a special pen here. Okay. And Sumiko, here you go. Yes, all right. Okay, great. Which one's you prefer? Yeah, let's do it. Okay, Sumiko. So I guess we'll switch. Yeah, let's switch places here.
Appreciate the 4,000 signatures we have up are from individuals. I think we are going to start honoring more of these kinds of like group commitments that people are making on behalf of their guests that are traveling, on behalf of their employees that they employ. So with that, I think the numbers are going to go up considerably, but I think we do want to still put a focus on having these kinds of partners encourage individual participation so we can direct them to connect to local nonprofits.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much. Should we have a group photo here? Maybe we can ask Misato and Hito. You guys want to take a photo as well for us? We can get Sumiko. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody's effort as well. Thank you. Yes, the pledge to our keiki to all the children in the future of Hawaii. Thank you so much. Congratulations to all your hard work. Yes. Thank you for coming on board. And thank you so much. Yeah, we can be here for a minute. Yeah, exactly. So everybody, I wanted to introduce our final part of the program today. We have a musician, Brother Ash here, who's going to perform for us. Yes, and part of this Blue Innovation Reception and part of the partnership building for the SDGs is really to get to know about all of the incredible work that you're doing. So the first part of this program was really the showcase here, highlighting all of the work and the different experiences around Peaceboat and what we hope to inspire. And we'd love for you to listen to this music and continue to be inspired. We'll be also serving drinks and food here for a little reception, and then we'll be disembarking the ship following the concert. So please do make sure you introduce yourself to your neighbors, make some new friends.
This is an announcement of our reception. Now we receive your passport at reception on deck 5. Passengers still have your passport and will not go ashore today. Please submit it to reception on deck 5.
レセプションよりご案内いたします。ただいま5階レセプションにてパスポートをお預かりしております。お手元にパスポートをお持ちのお客様で、この後下船されないお客様はパスポートをお持ちになり、5階中央レセプションまでお越しください。ありがとうございました。
各位贵宾，下午好，这是来自前台的广播。现在我们将于5楼服柜台回收您的护照，身上持有护照且今日不宜下船外出的乘客，请携带护照前往5楼服柜台返还。谢谢。승객 여러분 안녕하십니까? 5층 리셉션에서 지금 여권을 제출해 주시기 바랍니다. 아울러 오늘 합선 예정이 없으신 승객분은 여권을 5층 중앙 리셉션으로 반납해 주시기 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
1, 2, 3. Aloha mai kaku, everyone. Minasan konnichiwa. Hola a todos. Aloha mai kako. Aloha. Let's try that again. Aloha mai kako. Aloha, everybody. At this time, I want to invite everyone. Stand up, stretch it out, take a walk around. You guys can talk story bala'au with each other. Baru Ashton Ko'oino. My name is Bada Ash. From Kalidari Oahu. I'm a musician, singer, songwriter, founder of Creative Native Hawaii, which is a music and multimedia network designed and operated by local creatives for local creatives that curated music for various venues, events, and organizations. Just like Hawaii Green Girls, I work with Parley.
Excuse me, can I stop?
So please, if you guys ever need live music for any event, please don't be afraid to reach out, have cards, and you can contact me, Creative Natives HI. I think we can't talk about sustainability if we don't talk about the great wonder that is known as the Hokulea. Hokulea is a canoe, the Hawaiian canoe, traditional canoe that was sailed to Tahiti and back in the 1970s. And I think serves as a beautiful representation of sustainability in Hawaii and the world. So I'm going to share this melody, I'm going to share this song with you guys that was written for the Hokulea, made popular by Parley. Israel, come up with you, man. Go sing it out. Raindrops, they have a long vision, falling down, cutting incision. Why sing our song? Blow my cunning, shout jubilation, carry us down to our destination. Million stars up in the sky, looking up beyond the sky. You're the star that lives. Oh, star that lives. Stand beside me, my friend. Make me smile like a queen. You're the star that lives. Oh, star that lives. If I go, your horse has to the sea. Guide through your heart, Lord, yes, you Lord, show us the way. Oh, star that lives. You're the happy star. Star that lives. You're the happy star. Star that lives. Peacebuilding, Ohana. Give it up, everyone. Give it up, give it up.
Okay, that's it. I'm done.
To the east side, the western side of the island of Oahu. The beautiful tune written and composed by Anatara Jerry Santos, talking about leaving his beautiful home of Honolulu, being so scared to come back. All of these different changes. Yeah.
Right. Get back. All right.